We have to click on the HTML always. With HTML tag defines page metadata container. We have header tag. Okay. With HTML tag contains visible content, body tag. With HTML tag defines page title. Title tag we have. With HTML tag defines heading level 1. H1. Heading level 6. H6. Okay. The smallest is H6. We have just 3 headings, not H7. Okay. And the largest is H1. Okay. But HTML tag defines paragraph. Paragraph we have T tag. Okay. With HTML tag insert line break, inserting line break, we have a PR tag. Okay. With HTML tag insert horizontal rule, we have a rule HR tag. With HTML tag defines hyperlink. A tag we have, which attribute defines the link destination. We have a href tag. Okay. Which attribute opens link in new tab. We have a target blank tag. Okay. Which HTML tag defines images. We have a img tag. Which attribute defines image source. We have a src tag. Okay. Which attribute defines image alternate text. We have a alt tag. Okay. Which HTML tag defines unordered list. We have a UL. Okay. Which HTML tag defines order list. We have OL. Okay. Which HTML tag defines list item. We have LIL. Okay. Which HTML tag defines description list. So basically we have DL. Okay. Which HTML tag defines terms and description list. We have DT. Okay. Which HTML tag defines description definition. We have DT. Okay. Which HTML tag defines table. Table tag we have. Okay. Which HTML tag defines table row. TR tag we have. Okay. Which HTML tag defines table data cell. We have TD tag. Okay. Which HTML tag defines table header cell. TH. Which HTML tag defines table header section. We have a TH. Okay. TH. Which HTML tag defines table body section. We have a T body tag. Okay. Which HTML tag defines the table footer section. We have a TF. Footy foot. Which HTML tag defines table caption. We have a caption tag. Okay. Which HTML attribute merge columns call span and merge row span. Which HTML attribute merge row span. We have. Okay. 33 question we have. Which HTML tag defines form. So defining form we have a form tag. Okay. Which attribute define form submission URL. So basically for doing this we have attribute called action tag. Okay. Which attribute defines form method. So for defining form method we have a method attribute. Which method sends data in URL format. So basically for doing this we have a get method. Okay. And what actually sends data securely. Securely means we have a post. Okay. Which HTML tag defines input field. Basically we have input. Which input type hides characters. For doing this we have a password. Okay. Which input type allows email. So allowing email we have email. Okay. Which input type allows URL. For allowing URL we have a URL. Okay. Which input type allows file upload we have file. So sorry for that. We have a file. Okay. Which input type defines checkboxes. Checkbox. Okay. Which input type defines radio button. Defining radio button we have a radio tag. Which input type defines submit button. For defining submit button we have a submit tag. Which input type defines reset button. We have a clear. Okay. Which HTML attribute makes field required. We have a required tag. Okay. Which HTML attribute disable field. Basically for disabling field we have a disable tag. Which HTML attribute provide placeholder text. We have an attribute called placeholder. Which HTML attribute make input autofocus. We have a attribute called autofocus. Which HTML attribute pre-select checkboxes. Basically we have checked. Okay. Which HTML attribute pre-selected drop down option. So for doing this we have a selected tag. Selected attribute. Okay. Which HTML tag defines a multi-line in text input. For doing this we have a text area. Which HTML attribute defines number of rows in text area. We have a rows. Okay. Which HTML attribute defines number of columns in text area. Calls. Okay. And what about rows? Rows, okay. ROWS, which HTML tag defines clickable button. For doing this, we have button. Which HTML tag defines progress indicator. For doing this, we have a progress tag, okay. Which HTML tag defines a scalar measurement within range. So for doing this, we have a meter. Which HTML tag defines audio content. Audio content can be defined using audio. Which HTML tag defines video content. We have video tag, okay. Which HTML attribute enable video autoplay. Autoplay tag we have, okay. Which HTML attribute repeats media playback. We have a okay. Which HTML attribute shows media controls. We have a controls tag, okay. Which HTML tag defines media source file. We have a source tag. Which HTML tag defines the title or captions. We have a track tag. And which HTML tag defines the image map. We have a map tag. Which HTML tag defines clickable region in image map. So for this we have a area tag, okay. Which HTML tag defines scalable vector graphics. We have a SVG tag. This is option A correct, okay. Mcqs option A correct, okay. Which HTML tag is used for drawing graphics via JavaScript. We have a canvas tag. Which HTML tag embed another web page. We have a iframe tag, okay. Which HTML tag embeds external object. We have a all embed and objects both. Which HTML tag defines navigation link. Nav tag we have. Which HTML tag defines independent article. We have article tag. Which HTML tag defines site content. We have a site tag. Which HTML tag defines header section. Header tag we have. Which HTML tag defines footer section. Footer tag we have. Which HTML tag defines main content. Defining main content we have a main tag, okay. Which HTML tag defines generic block container. Div tag. Which HTML tag defines generic inline container. Span tag. Which HTML tag defines figure content. Figure tag. Which HTML tag defines caption figure. We have a fig caption, okay. Which HTML tag defines table. So defining table we have table. Which HTML tag defines table row. We have tr, okay. Which HTML tag defines table data cell. We have td. Which HTML tag defines table header cell. th. Which HTML attribute merges table columns. Call span. Which HTML attribute merges table rows. Row span. Which HTML tag defines form. For doing this we have a form tag, okay. Which HTML attribute defines form action URL. Action tag. Which HTML attribute defines form method. For doing this we have a method, okay. Which method appends form URL. This is a get. We have already discussed this questions, okay. Which method hides form data from URL. Form hiding basically done by the using post, okay. Which HTML input type create text field. We have a text input type, okay. Which HTML input type create password field. For creating password field we have a password input type, okay. Which HTML input type creates checkboxes. Checkbox. Which HTML input type creates radio button. Radio tag. Which HTML input type creates file upload. File tag, okay. Which HTML input type creates email field. We have a email tag, okay. Which HTML input type creates URL field. We have a URL tag. And 1000 question we have. Which HTML input type creates numeric input. For doing this we have a number. So we have done with the 1000 questions, and also we have been discussing some of the other top 100 important questions in the first part one, okay. So keep watching the playlist if you haven't yet access the playlist, and thank you so much for watching the video till now, and do like, subscribe and share the channel with your friends, because we are aiming to complete 100 subscriber this week, okay. So help the channel to our channel, okay. And yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and good luck. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you.